Because he's afraid that the Jews are going to think that this is the guy, he's like, no. Like he's trying to tell them this isn't the guy. But they misinterpreted it and thought, oh, this is the guy. Now these guys, their jaws drop. And all of a sudden they realize that the Alter Rebbe answered exactly on point. Imagine what happened to their heart at that moment, right? Okay, good luck, everybody. So last week we finished the story. You love the story, you weren't here. Previously, in last week's part 1, Reb Meir Refoels someone was directed that Meir Refoels should find in Aguna's husband. He had no way of finding him. And then he appeared. And he realized, and this was at the directive of the Alter Rebbe, and he realized that the Chassidim are not as bad as the Misnagdim or the people who are against the Chassidim make it. And he was kind of like not sure. He said, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe not. And he's like, I'm going to wait and see. So it happened that poor man who lived around the town of Vilna, and because he was poor, he made his way by foot to Liozna. On the way to Liozna, he stopped in Vilna. And he went to the shul, took out a Gemara, and he started to learn. Right? Now, this happened on a Thursday. And so because it was Thursday, it was late in the week, he decided he was going to stay in Vilna, which was a center of Torah. He decided he was going to stay in Vilna for Shabbos. Now, the Shamash in the shul in Vilna saw that this guy wasn't, as the Sefer puts it, as Rav Shlomo Zalman puts it, he wasn't the archi parche. Remember that word? He wasn't like one of these regular guys who pass by. He realized that he's a special person. Why? Because he saw that he didn't ask for donations. He wasn't one of these beggars who asked for money. And the only time he would stop learning was to eat a little bit of hard bread with some salted fish, and he would go back to learning. And he learned the entire Leil Shishi. So the Shamash sees this and he sees, okay, this guy's a special person. He's a Talmid Chacham. He's not regular. So on Friday, the Shamash goes over to this person who was a Talmid Chacham and who was a Chassid, and he asks him, where are you staying for Shabbos? And he says, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here in shul. I want to be here. So the Shamash said, why don't you go to we have so many rich people in Vilna, and they love doing the MITZVAH prognosis, and you're a Talmid Chacham. Go eat by somebody's house. He says, no, I'm going to stay here. He was very, very adamant. Now, the Shamash goes and tells this to one of the rich people that he knew that always liked to have guests for Shabbos. So this guy heard about a person who came to town, was a Talmid Chacham. He's like, I got to get this guy at my table. So this rich man goes over to the Rav and asks the Rav to gang up with him to go and beg this guy and convince him to eat by him. Finally, after a lot of convincing, finally he agrees, but not to sleep, only to eat. Right? He wanted to stay in shul. Wanted to stay. There was, back then there was people who didn't have a place to stay. They would eat and sleep in shul. So he said, I'm going to go for the meal, but I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm going to sleep in shul. So they agree. He goes, and Friday night they're learning. They're talking and learning the entire meal. And this rich man sees that this guest is a real Talmid Chacham, and he enjoys the entire time with him. Right before benching, the rich man, the host, lets out a huge krecht, a huge sigh, like something's really, really bothering him, and he's in a real pain over something, real emotional pain. So this guest, who was a chassid, was like, okay, he didn't want to ask, it's not nice, so he's like, this is very strange. In the middle of, having a good Shabbos meal, the guy sounds like he's about to, his life is over. Fine. He goes back to shul. The next morning, after davening, he goes and eats by him, and the same thing happens. They talk and learning and everything, and right before benching, it looks like this guy would think about his life problems right before benching. But right before benching, the guy, again, does the same exact thing. He lets out this heave and this sigh of a lot of pain. It's happened by Seder Shlishis, and it also happens by Melama Malka. This chassid, after seeing this 4 times, he can't hold himself back. He says, what's going on? So this rich man says, me and my partner, some people put out a false accusation against us, and I guess there was something in money matters, and saying that we did something wrong in business, and the local courts said that our sentence is 3 years in Siberia, which is a brutal sentence that some people don't come back from. And we appealed it. We made an appeal, and it went to the, I guess, the regional court, the higher court, a higher court than that. And again, they also said that we deserve this. So now, the only court we have left is the high court in Petersburg. And we don't know. We have no way of knowing what's going to happen. So this man, who until this point he didn't talk about the fact that he was a chassid, tells this rich man, I want to speak to you privately, in a private room. So they go into a private room, and he reveals to him, he says, I think you should go to the Alter Rebbe. I am one of the younger and less important people of the Talmidim, of the Chassidim, of the Alter Rebbe. So you can imagine how impressive this is. This guy was a big Talmid Chacham, was a real learner, so really real knowledge in Torah, and he's one of the right. He's one of the lower ones. So he says, I'm going to Liozna. Come with me. I'm sure that you're going to have Yeshua. I'm 100% sure that everything's going to turn out fine. Now, this guy is from Vilna, and he's not a chassid. So he's not 100% sure about this. He says, I have to speak to my partner first. So he goes over to his partner. He starts speaking to his partner. His partner says, number one, I don't know if we're going to be saved. But number two, but the problem is they do have something to lose. Because if they find out in town that we went after the cult, that we went and tried to, buddy with the people at the cult, we're never going to be accepted in our community again. So they don't know what to do. They go back and forth. They're like, you know what? We're going to ask R Meir Refoels. This is where R Meir Refoels come to the story. R Meir Refoels was a good friend of both of them. And they go to him and they make him promise before they tell him anything. He says, we have to tell you something, but you have to promise us you're not going to tell a soul. He agrees. And they say this whole story and they say, we don't know what to do. This guy who's Talmid Chacham, he's a chassid, and he's saying we should go to Alter Rebbe. What do you think? And R Meir Refoels was still under the influence of this crazy story with the Aguna, and he himself has an interest to see what's going on. And he says, I'm maskim, you could go. So the moment that he says that, they don't waste any time. They go straight to the Liozna, and they go into the Alter Rebbe. And they go to the Alter Rebbe, they tell Alter Rebbe what's going on, what their problem is. And the Alter Rebbe looks at them and says, you guys seem to be, you're Talmidei Chachamim. So, do you have an explanation for what it says in Gemara Brachis, that Malchusa da'ara ke'en Malchusa d'Rakia, that the kingship of the earth, in other words, a king on earth, is similar to the kingship of Shemayim. In other words, God's kingship. And the Alter Rebbe is saying, well, what's the pshat here? How are they similar? And so they're quiet. And the Alter Rebbe says, I'll tell you. It says in the Gemara Psachim, I think it was Gemara Psachim, that Zeshmi Le'elem. I think it's a play on words, right? It's Zeshmi Le'elem, that this is my name. I think Le'elem means to be hidden. In other words, that the way that Hashem's name is spelled, we don't pronounce it, right? Hashem's name is spelled Yud Kei Vav Kei, but we say Shem Adnai, Aleph Dal Nun Yud. So Hashem's name, the name of his Atmos, we're not allowed to say. We have to give another name. And also down here, a king. You're not allowed to say the king's name. You have to call him by king, your majesty, Kesar, whatever it is. You can't call the king by his name. So the Alter Rebbe explains this is the similarity. Just like Hashem, we're not allowed to say his name, Shema Atzmus, we have to say a different name. Also, the king, you can't say the Shema Atzmus. You can't tell him his private individual name. You have to call him by a name of Malchus. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say another word to them, and it was clear to them that the Yechidus was over. These guys, the second this happens, they walk out. They totally, any thought that they had that maybe the Chassidim and the Rebbe are there's something to them, they're like, these people are nuts. This guy we told him we're in trouble, and he tells us a pshat in Gemara, and he tells us to go. This is nuts. They go back, they tell him R Meir Refoels, and R Meir Refoels himself says, okay, fine. So the Aguna story was a coincidence, nothing to do, and the Chassidim are actually as crazy as people say they are. Fine. Now, a few months pass, and now the High Court in Petersburg is going to decide these two partners' fate. They go to Petersburg and they start going to lawyers, and the lawyers, none of them seem to be able to help them. One of the lawyers said, "Why don't you go and try to meet the minister of law on his own time and just beg him for help. Like, what do you have to lose? So they go and they investigate and they look and they find that he has every single day, the Minister of Justice goes to a certain municipal garden every single day. And so what do? They go there before the time he's supposed to come. They bribe the guard with a nice gift so that he should let them in the garden. And they tell him, please let us know when the Minister of Justice is going to be coming into the garden. Now, what happened that day was the Minister of Justice was sick. And so he didn't he wasn't going to the garden that he would normally frequent at all those days. But a different minister came, the Minister of Education. So the Minister of Education is one there. Now, the guard, aside from just guarding the garden, he also, when someone important comes in, he's going to go and see how he can help them, right? So he goes over to the Minister of Education and starts to service him whenever he needs. And because he's afraid that the Jews are going to think that this is the guy, he's like, no. Like, he's trying to tell them this isn't the guy. But they misinterpreted it and thought, oh, this is the guy. So they go and they run in front of him and they start, before he even has a chance to say anything, they go and start telling the whole story and they fall at his feet and they beg him, please help us. And after they're all done, he's like, guys, I would love to help you. I'm so sorry, but I'm not the right guy. I'm not the Minister of Justice. I'm the Minister of Education. And so these guys are so let down. Their spirits are so broken. They leave, and they go on their way. But the Minister of Education all of a sudden tells the guard, hey, bring those 2 Jews back here. So now the guard is scared because he's afraid he's going to get in trouble for letting them in. But he has to listen. So he goes and tells these 2 Jews, hey, come back. He wants you back. They're scared that they're going to get punished for coming in without permission, but they have no choice either. So they go back. They're all scared. And he starts telling them like this. You know what? I want to help you guys. The Tsar asked me a question recently that I don't have an answer to, but it's about your Talmud, and you look like learned Jews. He asked me like this. It says in the Jewish Talmud, the kingship of earth is just like the kingship of the heaven. And he wanted to know in what way they're similar. And now these guys, their jaws drop. And all of a sudden they realize that the Alter Rebbe answered exactly on point. And they right away, imagine what happened to their heart at that moment, right? They right away say the answer, because just like you can't call God by his private name, or the same thing also, you can't call the Caesar, the Caesar, or the Tsar by his name. You have to call him king or your majesty or Tsar. And that was the answer they gave him. And he liked the answer a lot. And he said, I'm going to go to the Tsar. I'm going to tell him your answer. And if and I'm going to ask him also to pardon you. And he can do it. The Tsar can do whatever he wants. The Tsar says whatever that goes. The minister goes, tells the Tsar. The Tsar, he liked the answer. The Tsar also loved the answer. And then after he saw that the Tsar liked the answer, the Minister of Education tells the Tsar, there's these 2 Jews, they're the ones who gave me the answer. Because I saw them in the garden. He tells them the whole thing. And they saw them in the garden. They wanted to help him. And I told him that I would ask you if you could pardon them. And the Tsar heard this right away. He sent out the word that their cases to be dropped and they're pardoned from all crimes. And these guys get the news and they go back and they're so happy. They go back to Vilna. They tell R Meir Refoels what happened. And the second R Meir Refoels hears this, he didn't even wait. He went, got a wagon, went straight to the Alter Rebbe and became one of the most ardent Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. And this is the story of how R Meir Refoels became a Chassid. May we all see miracles like this. May we see the ultimate miracle of Mashiach now. May we be reunited with all our Rabbeim, with our loved ones, with all our Tzaddikim. May it be Aminu Mamish right now with Mashiach. Good